So guess who forgot to make a video last week? Me. And the week before. Me. I have not a single excuse. There just really wasn't anything exciting going on to make a video about. Also, don't you like my acne? Oh, it's so pretty. So I'm on a little bit of a TV show high right now because I've been watching all this stuff on Netflix, and I discovered that there's these like sci-fi miniseries which are classic like kid stories, and they kind of make them a lot darker and sci-fi-y. So I watched Peter Pan, which was like they were trying to make it this big thing where Peter and Hook actually start off as friends in the real world, and then they went over together, and then it's this big betrayal when Hook like turns out to be bad. But you never really have a good feeling about Hook anyway, so you're kind of like, yep, get over it, Peter. And then there was Tin Man, which was the Wizard of Oz. That was better, for sure. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. They had the evil character. She actually, it turns out she was more complex. She wasn't just evil, so I really liked that. And Zooey Deschanel was the star, so a lot of the lines that could have been cheesy were actually like kind of amusing and sarcastic because she's that kind of actress, so I enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it was too long though, like there was parts that were just not necessary. And then I just watched one called Alice, which I think we could all figure out what story that was based on. I'm not sure if you had mentioned this show to me before or someone else had. Someone did it at one point. They told me about this like miniseries and told me to watch it, and I just did. I really, really liked it. It was my favorite of the three. Now, it wasn't perfect by any means. There were parts of it that were just like, this is unnecessary, and there was parts of it that were silly, but like in a dumb way. But they had Alice and the Mad Hatter get together. I'm really not spoiling anything here. After about 5 seconds of them meeting like each other, you'll figure out that they're going to get together. And he was just so charming and British, and he was very cocky, and he just like had this little like mischievous smile, and like she really liked him, and they fought at first, and at the end, I'm gonna spoil it, they get together. I don't know why we're so big on having romance and things, in songs, and movies, and books, but for some reason, it's there, and I could just be like, oh, well, you know, it's popular in Twilight, so everyone sticks it in, and because they think they should have it, which may be true to some extent, but I honestly think books are better when they have romance. Not every book, but a lot of them. I mean, I enjoyed the story a lot more, and I'll admit, maybe it's just because I'm a girl. I like romantic things. I watch, like, freaking, like, Regency romances, for Christ's sake. Like, I watched, like, all the stuff set in Jane Austen period where people get together. I mean, those are dumb, but I enjoy them anyway because of the romance. So, like, alright, maybe it's just me. However, today at the publishing house, they've got this author who wrote, I'm just gonna throw this out there on the internet. Whoops. Who wrote the book The Pulse, which is like a post-apocalyptic novel, and it's about how there's this giant pulse or something, and everyone loses electricity, and so it leads to rioting and the end of the world as we know it. And we suggested that he do not necessarily a sequel for it, but a YA novel, like same kind of situation, and it could be the same pulse, but it's about these different characters and they're teenagers. Because YA sells so big. So he gave us a little summary of his idea, and it was alright, it was kind of boring. And so my boss, because I, read YA novels, had me give him elements of, like, what isn't, a good, popular YA novel, and then email this guy, basically explaining to him what he should do to make a good YA novel, which is so ridiculous, because, of course, here I am having written YA novels and trying to get these published, and here's a guy who hasn't even written this one yet, but, like, he's already got a publishing deal, and I have to teach him how to do it. I mean, life is insane sometimes. Things I said included starting with an action scene of some sort. Parents are dead, or missing, or out of the picture in general. This is true for pretty much every YA. I think the reason that you basically have to get rid of the parents in some way is because a kid's journey can't start until they're apart from their parents. A lot of being a young adult is about forging your own identity, and that's a reason kids like dye their hair and hang out with like bad crowds, and they're like, oh, I hate you, mom and dad. It's because up until they become a teenager, their identity's always been forged by their parents. That's how they identify themselves, as their parents' kid. And then they hit teenage years and they realize they can form this identity independent of their parents. If you look at any YA novel, it's this kid going on a journey, and usually by the end of it, they've changed, like their characters changed, they've developed in some way. So they basically have formed their own identity, they've done their own thing. And, in order for that to happen, the parents have to be out of the picture, because otherwise that journey cannot take place. Related to the idea of forging your own identity is the fact that in these books, almost never is the kid just alone. They have friends of some sort, friends that they choose. And again, that's the idea of you can't choose your family, you're stuck with them, but you can choose your friends. And so by choosing them, that's saying something about yourself and your identity. Peers are such a big influence on teenagers' lives. They've done studies, and, if a kid gets into drugs or alcohol, or, what their interests are, what kind of, political beliefs they have, that kind of stuff. And the vast majority of the time, peers influence it way more than the parents do. Next, and I'll admit this one isn't always true, but it is a lot of the time, someone should die. It's because when that person dies, it's usually when it's before they start their journey, so they're way too freaked out to do it, or it's sort of in the middle where they're really discouraged and they've given up all hope. And then this person dies, and suddenly it's it acts as a catalyst for their journey and their, willpower. And suddenly they have a new determination and new goals, and they have a new reason to keep going on with their journey, and it's to avenge this person's death, to make sure it wasn't in vain. And then the last thing I suggested, and this is kind of course, how this all ties into the miniseries I was talking about earlier, was having a romance. And it doesn't have to be the main frickin' plot of the book. The book doesn't have to just be about romance like Twilight. But it has to still be there. It's gotta be in there. And see, everything else I sort of have an explanation for, right? I was going into deep shit like identity and a catalyst for a journey. I mean, I don't know. But romance, I actually don't really have a reason why that kind of has to be in there. Why that is usually the difference between a not popular book and a popular book, particularly for YA novels. I don't know. Do you have any theories, Hannah, or anyone watching this video? Because I want to know why we so into romance, yo. Alright, I love you. Yes, you, whoever you are, you're great. Beautiful. Going to Emerson. Wait, that's just Hannah.